The video for July the 8th, 2017 is entitled Money as Debt and the RV. The practical problem behind the issues we face as humans, besides the liars and lies we are forced to deal with, is the debt-based monetary system. Interest on money is the key here. If money was put into circulation interest-free, and there was no interest on money in any form, it would return to its rightful role as a unit of energy exchange that overcomes the limitations of barter. It is when you introduce interest that the trouble starts, because then you are making money from money, and it no longer serves the people. It enslaves us. Lincoln's greenback system was a solution, and it got him killed by those pushing the slavery of war on humanity. Also, the states in this country were thriving because they did not have a debt-based system in the beginning, and there was no unemployment. All needs were met easily until England imposed a debt-based system that led to the Revolutionary War. Will the RV finally change that? Yeah, this is the subject that's key in the whole thing of what's happening in this world and what has been happening to us as humanity for a very long time. The monetary system really, in earnest, the modern monetary system really came into being in earnest with the introduction of this debt-based system by the Rothschilds. Now, it may have existed to some degree before that, but it wasn't widespread, and it did not generate the problems that we have faced in the last few centuries, because there was no central bank that tried to claim the entire world for itself. Yes, Rome, the pontiffs tried to claim things, and there was a level of attempted control, and of course the British Commonwealth, so-called, they tried to impose their ways and laws on the rest of the world. They succeeded to some degree in India and of course Canada and Australia and the so-called British Commonwealth nations, South Africa, etc. And Europeans were involved all over the world in colonizing things, the continent of Africa and parts of Asia and the islands. Of course, Australia was nothing but a Commonwealth establishment taking over from the Aboriginals, who didn't, of course, have any monetary. I don't know if they even had a monetary system in Australia before the Brits came. And we know about, at least those of us that live here anyway, that have paid somewhat of attention, know what happened in the Americas with the colonial powers of England and Spain wielding great influence. And of course, Brazil is the largest Latin American country, and it was under the Portuguese. But in any case, the whole thing really hinged around the Rothschilds and the banking system that had taken root in Europe. And as I said in the blurb, from what I have gleaned, and I don't know what history is true and what is false, but it seems that the early colonies that became the United States, they didn't have a debt-based system. They were thriving without a European-imposed monetary system. I don't know exactly all the details of how that worked, but at least some reports indicate that they were thriving until the imposition of the debt-backed slavery, and that's what created the Revolutionary War. It wasn't just the tax on tea, it was the tax on money itself, where they tried to impose, again, a fiat currency, a debt-based fiat currency for use in the United States as opposed to whatever they were using before that. And I would probably need to do some more research before I could speak more definitively on that. But then again, what is truth and what isn't truth becomes the question, because so much of what we've been told is fabricated. I don't even know for sure what our history was, because history is told by those that win. We've been told that, right? I mean, most of you realize that the winners tell the story of what happened, and it's the story they want to put forth, not necessarily the truth. And that goes with religion and politics and everything else. The winners are the ones that get to tell the story. And for a long time, of course, the British Commonwealth were the winners. So, folks, we've got an RV that's been being promised and regurgitated over and over again, which is a currency revaluation. That's what RV means, for those of you that don't know, although most of you that listen to me probably realize that that's what it means, but some may not. So I repeat, it's a currency revaluation, and it's based on asset-backed currencies, gold, silver, precious metals, diamonds, things that are of intrinsic value because we have made them valuable. It's not quite the same as the greenbacks were that Lincoln introduced, which was simply a currency for exchange, as a medium of exchange. So I don't know, I mean, to me, all countries and all regions of the world should be able to create their own currency based on nothing necessarily. It doesn't need to be gold backed or anything. It just needs to be accepted at value. But the problem is interest, debt. There is no need for debt. We are not debtors. We are the creditors. And in fact, if you study the Rothschild system, they claim ownership of that which belongs rightfully to the people. It's our value that provides the so-called value, or not the so-called, the intrinsic value behind everything is labor and creativity, as I've said in other videos. That's what creates the value. And if our monetary system, if we needed to have a monetary system at all, it would be based on something that has actual value, and that is we the people. And that's what Anna von Reitz and so many others have been trying to reestablish, the principles of a republic as opposed to democracy. Democracy is a demonic control grid that is, as we've experienced it, is mostly fake. It's phony. It's a system of enslavement using the idea of money. But it's money that somebody creates out of nothing, which is what the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers and the international bankers did. They create something out of nothing and then multiply it. And that's the world that we've lived in. And how are we going to overcome that? I believe it's going to take divine intervention to take these charlatans out of the game, because they don't belong in the game. And I was going to go into something else, but I see that my time is drawing to a close and I don't have a time to open that can of worms. But there are people that saying the RV is under the control of the U.S. government. If that's true, it'll never happen. I mean, the U.S. government is a criminal war operation against the people of the world, and we need to realize that. Anyway, thank you for listening, and namaste.